The big space station called Nexus Prime moved slowly around the planet Kepler 442b. Inside the station, a huge room made of crystal walls held the most important meeting in the galaxy. 47 different alien species sat in their special chairs, talking in voices that sounded like music, growls, and clicks. Ambassador Zithkar stood up from his chair. He was tall and had blue skin with silver spots. His forearms moved as he spoke to the crowd. "We start today's meeting," he said in the common language that all aliens understood. "But once again, the humans from Earth are not here. The other." Aliens made sounds that showed they were not surprised. Some shook their heads. Others made clicking sounds with their mouths. The Aquarians, who looked like walking fish, made bubbling sounds that meant they were disappointed. 12 years, said Ambassador Veltron from the Crystalline Collective. His body was made of living crystal that changed colors when he talked. 12 years we have asked them to join us. 12 years they say no. In the back of the room, a small green alien with big eyes raised her hand. "Maybe they are scared," she said. "New species often take time to feel ready for big meetings like this." The other aliens nodded. They had seen this before. When a new species learned to travel between stars, they often felt too small and weak to join the big galactic meetings. Most species needed hundreds of years to feel brave enough to sit with the older, more powerful aliens. But the humans were different in a strange way. They had been traveling in space for only a short time, but they were not asking for help like most new species did. They were not begging for technology or protection. They just said, "No thank you," and stayed quiet. Far away from the meeting. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on the human ship called UES Defiant. The ship floated in empty space, hidden behind a small moon. Jake was 50 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been watching the aliens for a long time. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker, walking up to his chair. She was young with short brown hair and smart eyes. "The meeting has started. They are talking about us again." Jake nodded, but did not look away from the big screen in front of him. The screen showed the alien meeting happening far away. The humans had secret ways to watch and listen to everything the aliens said. "What are they saying this time?" he asked. "Same thing as always," Lisa said. "They think we are scared children who need more time to grow up." Jake almost smiled, but not quite. If only they knew the truth. The humans were not scared. They were not weak. They were planning and building and getting ready for something big. Something the aliens would never expect. On the screen, the aliens were talking about something else now. A new problem had come up. Some of the aliens were worried about a group called the Hegemony. This group had been attacking planets and taking them over. They were mean and used big weapons to hurt people. "The Hegemony took over 3 more worlds last month," said Ambassador Zethkar. His voice sounded worried. "They are getting stronger. We need to make a plan to stop them." The fish-like Aquarians made sad, bubbling sounds. "We should try to talk to them," one of them said. "Maybe they will listen if we are nice." Some of the other aliens made sounds that meant they disagreed. The Vorthans, who looked like big cats that walked on 2 legs, showed their teeth. "The Hegemony does not talk," said their leader. "They only fight. We must be ready to fight back." Jake listened to all of this with great interest. The aliens were afraid of the Hegemony, but they were arguing about what to do. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to talk. They could not agree on anything. "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "maybe we should help them. The Hegemony sounds dangerous." Jake turned to look at her. "We will help," he said, "but not yet. Not until the time is right." Back on Earth, President Kevin Hayes walked into a big room where important people from all over the world were waiting. The room was in Geneva, and it was where the United Nations Space Command made their biggest decisions. Kevin was a tall man, with kind eyes, but today he looked very serious. He walked to the front of the room and looked at all the people sitting there. Generals, scientists, and leaders from every country on Earth were waiting to hear what he would say. "Today is the day," Kevin said. His voice was strong and clear. "For 12 years, we have been quiet. We have been watching. We have been learning. The aliens think we are weak and scared. They think we need their help to survive." He stopped talking and looked around the room. Everyone was listening very carefully. "They are wrong," Kevin continued. "We are not weak. We are not scared. We have used these 12 years to build something amazing. Something that will change everything." All around the solar system, things were starting to move. On the moon, in the asteroid belt, and in secret places near Mars, 1,000 human spaceships were getting ready. These ships were not like the small, simple ship that the aliens had seen before. These ships were big and powerful and ready for war. The aliens had no idea what was coming. They thought humans were just babies learning to walk among the stars. Soon they would learn the truth. Soon they would see that humans had been planning something much bigger than anyone imagined. The meeting in space continued, with aliens arguing and worrying about the hegemony. None of them noticed the small, strange signals that appeared and disappeared on their sensors. None of them saw the shadows that moved just outside their vision. Jake Morrison smiled as he watched them. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the galaxy would meet the real human race. The space around Kepler 442b had been peaceful for thousands of years. The planet was beautiful with blue oceans and green lands, and the big space station Nexus Prime had always been a safe place for aliens to meet and talk. But that peaceful time was about to end. A strange ripple moved through space like a wave in water. The aliens in the meeting room felt it in their bones. Their ship's computers started making loud warning sounds. Red lights flashed everywhere. "What is happening?" asked Ambassador Zethkar, his blue skin turning white with fear. On the big screens around the room, the aliens could see something terrible. Ships were appearing out of nowhere. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them. These ships were black and ugly, with sharp points and scary designs. They looked like they were made to hurt people. The biggest ship was as long as a city. It had guns all over it, and its front looked like the mouth of a monster. On the side of the ship, words were written in a language that meant death to all who oppose us. "It's the hegemony," whispered Ambassador Veltron, his crystal body flashing red with panic. "They found us." The leader of the hegemony fleet was called War Master Crystal. He was a giant alien with 6 arms and skin like black metal. His eyes were red and full of hate. He had destroyed many worlds and killed millions of people. He enjoyed making others afraid. Crystal sat in his command chair on the biggest ship and looked at the space station through the window. He could see the small, weak ships that belonged to the peaceful aliens. They would be easy to destroy. "Send them our message," Crystal told his crew. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. The message went out to all the ships and to the space station. When the aliens heard it, many of them started to shake with fear. "Peaceful aliens of the Galactic Council," the message began. "I am War Master Crystal of the Hegemony. You have been living in peace for too long. Peace makes you weak. Weakness makes you useless. Today, your weakness ends." The aliens in the meeting room looked at each other with scared eyes. Some of them had heard stories about the hegemony. Others had seen videos of planets burning after the hegemony attacked them. "You have 1 hour to give up," the message continued. "Open your ships, give us your weapons, bow down to the hegemony. If you do this, we will let some of you live as our slaves. If you do not do this, we will kill you all." Ambassador Zethkar stood up, even though his legs were shaking. "We will not give up," he said, but his voice was not very strong. "We will fight to protect our freedom." Krikstal laughed when he heard this. It was a terrible sound that made the aliens' blood turn. "Cold, then you will all die," he said. "Attack!" The hegemony ships moved forward like a swarm of angry insects. Their guns started to glow with deadly light. The peaceful aliens tried to run, but their ships were slow and not made for fighting. The first shots from the hegemony ships were like lightning. They hit 3 alien ships and turned them into balls of fire. The aliens inside died so quickly they did not even have time to scream. "Help us!" Ambassador Zethkar shouted into his communicator. "Anyone who can hear this, please help us." The message went out to all the planets and ships in the galaxy. Some aliens tried to come and help, but they were too far away. Others were too scared to fight the hegemony, but there was one message that went to a special place. It went to Earth, to the humans who had been saying no to the galactic meetings for 12 years. Admiral Jake Morrison was still sitting in his command chair on the UES Defiant when the message arrived. He read it carefully, and his face did not change. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker, "the aliens are asking for help. The hegemony is attacking them." Jake nodded slowly. "I know." He said, "Send a message back to them." Lisa looked confused. "What should I tell them?" "Tell them help is coming," Jake said. Then he smiled, and for the first time in 12 years, it was a real smile. The battle around the space station was getting worse. The hegemony ships were everywhere, shooting at anything that moved. The aliens' ships were breaking apart and exploding. People were dying, and there was nothing the peaceful aliens could do to stop it. Dr. Helen Carter was on another human ship called the UES Intrepid. She was a scientist who studied how space worked. She had been watching the hegemony ships very carefully, learning how they moved and how they fought. "Captain Foster," she said to the man in charge of her ship, "the hegemony ships use old technology. Their weapons are strong, but they are not very smart. We can beat them." "Captain Ryan." Foster nodded. He was a young man with short blonde hair and steady hands. "How long until we can join the fight?" he asked. "Admiral Morrison will give the order soon," Helen said. "Then we will show these aliens what humans can really do." Back on the space station, the aliens were in panic. Half of their ships were destroyed. The other half were trying to run away, but the hegemony ships were faster. "We surrender," shouted one of the small aliens. "Please don't kill us. We surrender." Krikstal laughed again. "Too late," he said. "I changed my mind. Now I will kill you all anyway." The biggest alien ship, belonging to the Vorthans, tried to fight back. It shot its weapons at the hegemony ships, but the shots bounced off like raindrops. The hegemony ships shot back, and the Vorthan ships started to fall apart. "This is the end," said Ambassador Zethkar quietly. "We are all going to die." But just then, something strange happened. The sensors on all the ships started to show something new. Something big was coming. Something that made space itself shake. "What is that?" asked Krikstal, looking at his screens with confusion. His crew looked at their instruments, but they could not understand what they were seeing. The readings were like nothing they had ever seen before. "Sir," said one of his crew members, "something is coming out of deep space. It's very big." Krikstal stood up from his chair. For the first time in many years, he felt a small touch of fear. "How big?" he asked. "Sir," the crew member said, and his voice was shaking, "I think it's 1,000 ships." The space around Kepler 442b was about to change forever. The aliens had been fighting and dying, thinking no one would come to help them. The hegemony had been winning, thinking they were the strongest force in the galaxy, but they were all wrong. The humans were coming, and they were bringing a surprise that would shock everyone. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. Every alien in the Kepler system felt it at the same moment, a deep rumbling that came from everywhere and nowhere. It was not a sound they could hear with their ears, but something they felt in their bones and their souls. The sensors on every ship, alien and hegemony alike, suddenly went crazy. Numbers flashed on screens, faster than anyone could read them. Warning lights blinked like angry red eyes. The computers that controlled the ships started making sounds they had never made before. "What is happening to our machines?" asked Ambassador Zeth Carr, pressing buttons that did not seem to work anymore. Then they saw it. At the very edge of space, where the darkness was deepest, points of light began to appear. Not just one or two, but dozens. Then hundreds. Then so many that they looked like new stars being born. War Master Krickstall stared at his screens with growing fear. His crew was running around the bridge, shouting numbers and readings that made no sense. "How many?" he demanded. "Sir," said his chief officer, and his voice was barely a whisper, "we count 1,000 ships." The number hit everyone like a physical blow. 1,000 ships was more than most entire star systems had. It was more than the hegemony had ever seen in one place. It was more than anyone thought was possible. But that was not the strangest part. The strangest part was how the ships appeared. They did not come slowly like most space travel. They did not tear holes in space like the hegemony ships did. They simply appeared all at once, as if they had always been there and were just now deciding to be seen. The formation they made was perfect. Every ship was in exactly the right place. The lines were straight, the spacing was even, and the whole fleet moved together like one giant creature with 1,000 eyes. At the front of the formation was a ship that made all the others look small. It was white and blue like the colors of Earth's sky, and it was shaped like a sword made of light. Along its side were words in human writing that said, U.E. Sivorin. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Sovereign, looking out at the battlefield where the aliens and the hegemony had been fighting. He was not the same man who had been hiding behind moons and watching from shadows. Now he stood tall and proud, wearing the uniform of the United Earth Space Command. "Communications," he said in a voice that carried across the bridge. "Send a message to all ships in the system. Tell them this is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet. Tell them we are here to restore peace." The message went out in every language known to the galaxy. When the aliens heard it, they could not believe their ears. The humans, the quiet, shy humans who had been afraid to join their meetings, had just arrived with the biggest fleet anyone had ever seen. On the space station, the aliens who had been preparing to die suddenly found hope. Ambassador Zeth Carr looked at his screens with wide eyes. "The humans," he whispered. "They came to help us, but the hegemony was not impressed." War Master Krickstall had conquered too many worlds to be afraid of anyone. "So the babies finally came out to play," he said with a cruel laugh. "Good. Now we can crush them and the weaklings at the same time." Captain Susan Walsh commanded one of the human cruiser ships called the U.E.'s Thunderbolt. She was a woman with red hair and green eyes who had been waiting for this moment her whole life. When she heard Krickstall's message, she smiled. "Commander Taylor," she said to the man beside her, "what do our sensors tell us about the enemy ships?" Commander Ben Taylor looked at his instruments with the careful eyes of someone who had studied alien technology for years. "They use energy, weapons, and simple shields," he said. "Their ships are big, but not very smart. They fight like bullies, with strength but no cleverness." "Perfect," Susan said. "Send word to the Admiral. We are ready to show them what human cleverness can do." All across the human fleet, Similar conversations were happening. The humans had spent 12 years studying every alien technology they could find. They knew how the hegemony fought. They knew the weaknesses in their ships. They knew exactly how to win. Dr. Helen Carter was on the UES Intrepid, watching the enemy fleet with scientific curiosity. She had been studying the hegemony's energy patterns and had discovered something interesting. "Captain Foster," she said, "their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, but they have never seen kinetic weapons like ours. Our solid projectiles will go right through their defenses." Captain Ryan Foster nodded. The humans had developed weapons that threw solid objects at incredible speeds. While the aliens fought with beams of light and energy, humans had learned to turn physics itself into a weapon. The aliens watching from the space station were confused. The human ships did not look like any warships they had ever seen. They were too smooth, too clean, too quiet. Where were the big guns? Where were the energy weapons that all civilized species used? "Maybe they are not warships," suggested one of the small aliens. "Maybe they are just cargo ships that came to help us escape." But Ambassador Zeeth Kar was studying the readings more carefully. "No," he said slowly. "Look at the power signatures. Look at how they move. These are warships. But they are like no warships we have ever seen." The hegemony fleet began to move toward the humans. Krixtal wanted to destroy these newcomers quickly, before they could interfere with his conquest. His 300 ships spread out in an attack formation that had worked on dozens of worlds. "All ships," Krixtal commanded, "prepare to fire. We will show these humans what real power looks like." The hegemony ships powered up their weapons. Energy began to glow along their hulls like veins of fire. The space around them started to shimmer with heat and radiation. Admiral Morrison watched this with calm eyes. "All ships," he said into his communicator, "this is Sovereign. You are cleared to engage. Show them what Earth can do." The human fleet began to move. But they did not charge forward like the hegemony expected. Instead, they moved in patterns that looked like a dance. Ships flowed around each other in perfect harmony, taking positions that created fields of crossfire and overlapping protection. "What are they doing?" asked Krixtal, watching the human formation with growing confusion. His weapons officer studied the patterns on his screen. "Sir, I think they are using mathematics. Their formation is based on some kind of calculation." Krixtal snorted with disgust. "Mathematics do not win wars. Power wins wars. All ships fire." The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Hundreds of energy beams lanced across space toward the human ships. The beams were bright enough to light up the entire system, and they carried enough power to melt mountains. But when the beams hit the human ships, something impossible happened. The beams simply disappeared. They did not bounce off like hitting a mirror. They did not explode like hitting armor. They just vanished as if they had never existed at all. "Impossible," shouted Krixtal. "Nothing can just absorb that much energy." But the humans had learned to do the impossible. Their shields did not try to stop the energy or reflect it. Instead, they captured it and turned it into power for their own ships. The hegemony's attack had just made the human fleet stronger. "Admiral." Morrison smiled as he watched the enemy's confusion. "All ships," he said, "return fire." The human fleet fired back, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The human ships fired back, and the universe learned something new about war. The UES Sovereign's main guns did not shoot beams of light or energy like every other ship in the galaxy. Instead, they launched solid pieces of metal that moved so fast they were almost invisible. These projectiles were accelerated by magnetic fields, so powerful they could bend space itself. The first projectile hit a hegemony cruiser right in the center. The ship's energy shields, which had stopped 1,000 energy weapons before, did nothing to slow down the solid metal. The projectile went through the ship like a needle through paper, and the ship exploded from the inside out. "Impossible!" screamed War Master Crickstell, watching one of his best ships turn into a ball of fire. "How can solid metal go through our shields?" His science officer was staring at his instruments with confusion and fear. "Sir, their weapons are not energy-based. They are throwing physical objects at us. Our shields are not designed to stop solid matter moving at that speed." Before Crickstall could answer, more human ships fired. The U's Thunderbolt, commanded by Captain Susan Walsh, launched a spread of missiles that moved like living things. These missiles did not fly in straight lines like normal weapons. They curved and twisted through space, following paths that seemed to know where the enemy ships would be before the enemy ships knew it themselves. "How are their missiles changing direction?" asked a hegemony weapons officer. "They are not following any flight path we understand." Commander Ben Taylor smiled as he watched his targeting systems work. The human missiles were guided by quantum, computers that could calculate the future positions of enemy ships by studying their movement patterns. The missiles were not just chasing the enemy ships. They were chasing where the enemy ships would be. The missiles hit their targets with perfect accuracy. 6 hegemony ships exploded in the space of 10 seconds. The aliens watching from the space station could not believe what they were seeing. "The humans," whispered Ambassador Zethkar, "they fight like no one we have ever seen." Dr. Helen Carter was watching the battle from the U.E.'s Intrepid, taking notes on everything she saw. As a scientist, she found the hegemony's technology fascinating, but primitive. "Captain Foster," she said, "their ships are designed to fight other energy weapon ships. They have no defense against kinetic weapons, and their tactics are based on the assumption that everyone fights the same way they do." "Captain." Ryan Foster nodded as he watched another hegemony ship break apart under human fire. "They fight like they have always fought," he said. "But we fight like no one has ever fought before." The battle was becoming a massacre. The hegemony had started with 300 ships, but dozens were already destroyed or disabled. Their weapons could not hurt the human ships, but every human shot found its target. The human fleet moved through space like a school of fish, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship was at all times. When the hegemony ships tried to concentrate their fire on one human ship, the other human ships would shift position to protect it. When the hegemony ships tried to spread out, the human ships would focus their fire and destroy them one by one. "This is not a battle," said Ambassador Veltron, his crystal body flashing with amazement. "This is a lesson. The humans are teaching the hegemony how war should be fought." War Master Crickstall was becoming desperate. Half his fleet was gone, and he had not destroyed a single human ship. His officers were looking at him with fear and doubt. Some of them were starting to whisper that maybe they should retreat. "All ships," Crickstall commanded, "target the big ship at the front. If we can destroy their leader, the rest will run away." Every remaining hegemony ship turned toward the U.E. Sovereign and fired at once. The combined energy of 150 ships lit up space like a new sun. The power was enough to destroy a small moon. Admiral Morrison watched the incoming fire with calm eyes. "Helm," he said, "evasive maneuvers. Shields to maximum." The Sovereign moved like a dancer, spinning and turning through the enemy fire. Most of the shots missed completely. The few that hit were absorbed by the ship's shields and turned into power for the ship's own weapons. "Sir," said Lisa Parker, "all enemy fire absorbed. Our power levels are at 120%. Morrison smiled. "Good. Use that. Extra power. Target their flagship." The Sovereign's main guns fired a single shot. The projectile was larger than any they had fired before, and it moved so fast it created a streak of light across space. It hit Kriksdal's flagship, the massive ship called the Dominator, right in the command section. The ship did not explode immediately. Instead, it seemed to fold in on itself, like a piece of paper being crushed by an invisible hand. The projectile had hit with so much force that it actually bent the ship's metal hull into a new shape. Kriksdal felt his ship dying around him. The lights went out, the air became hard to breathe, and the floor tilted at a crazy angle. Abandon. Ship, he screamed. All ships, retreat. But it was too late for retreat. The human ships had surrounded the hegemony fleet completely. Every escape route was blocked by human vessels that moved faster than anything the hegemony had ever seen. Captain Walsh's ship, the U.E.'s Thunderbolt, was chasing down the fleeing hegemony ships with the patience of a hunting cat. "Commander Taylor," she said, "how many enemy ships are left?" 43 ships still capable of fighting, Taylor reported. 62 ships disabled, but not destroyed. The rest are space debris. Send a message to the surviving ships, Walsh ordered. Tell them to surrender or be destroyed. Their choice. The message went out in the hegemony's own language. Most of the surviving ships immediately powered down their weapons and sent surrender signals. A few tried to keep fighting, but they were destroyed within minutes. The battle was over in less than an hour. The hegemony fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds was now nothing but wreckage and prisoners. Not a single human ship had been seriously damaged. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge, looking out at the battlefield. The space around Kepler 442b was filled with the burning remains of hegemony ships. The alien space station was safe, and the Galactic Council was alive. "Communications," he said. "Send a message to the space station. Tell them the threat has been eliminated." The message was simple, but it changed everything. The aliens who had been preparing to die were now free. The hegemony that had terrorized the galaxy for years was defeated, and the humans who had been thought of as weak and frightened had proven they were the strongest military force anyone had ever seen. "Sir," said Lisa Parker, "we are receiving surrender signals from all remaining enemy ships. What are your orders?" Morrison considered this carefully. The easy thing would be to destroy all the enemy ships, but that was not the human way. "Take them prisoner," he said. "Treat them according to the rules of war. Show them that strength and mercy can exist together." As the human ships moved to secure the prisoners and help the wounded, the aliens on the space station finally understood what they had witnessed. The humans had not just won a battle. They had redefined what it meant to be powerful in the galaxy. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of human protection had begun. The crystal meeting room on Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. 47 different alien species sat in their chairs, but no one was making a sound. They were all staring at the human woman who stood at the center of the room. Ambassador Claire. Roberts was not a tall woman, but she seemed to fill the entire room with her presence. She had short black hair and calm blue eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a simple blue uniform with the symbol of United Earth on her shoulder. "My name is Claire Roberts," she said, and her voice carried clearly to every corner of the room. "I speak for the people of Earth and the Terran Defense Fleet." The aliens listened carefully. After what they had just witnessed, they wanted to hear every word the humans had to say. "For 12 years, Claire continued, you have invited us to your meetings. For 12 years, we have politely declined. You thought this was because we were afraid, or because we were too primitive to understand galactic politics." Ambassador Zethkar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That was exactly what they had thought. "You were wrong," Claire said simply. "We were not afraid. We were not primitive. We were preparing." She touched a control on her wrist, and the rooms. Screens lit up with images that made the aliens gasp. The screens showed human cities on Earth, but not the Earth they thought they knew. These cities were full of towers that reached toward the sky, ships that flew without wings and technology. That looked like magic. While you were having your meetings, Claire said, we were building. We were learning. We were getting ready for the day when the galaxy would need us. The next images showed the human fleet in all its glory. 1,000 ships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. The aliens had seen these ships in battle, but seeing them all together was even more impressive. You see, Claire explained, we knew about the hegemony long before you did. We knew about their attacks on peaceful worlds. We knew about their plans to conquer the galaxy. We could have warned you, but we chose not to. Why? Asked Ambassador Veltron, his crystal body flashing with confusion. Why did you not warn us? Claire smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Because you would not have believed us. You would have thought we were lying to make ourselves seem important. You would have ignored our warnings, just like you ignored our intelligence. She was right, and every alien in the room knew it. They had thought of humans as children playing with toys. They never would have believed that these children could see dangers that the great galactic civilizations had missed. But there is another reason, Claire said. We wanted to see how you would handle the crisis. We wanted to know if you were the kind of people worth saving. The room became even quieter. The aliens were starting to understand that the humans had been testing them, judging them, deciding whether they deserved help. You argued, Claire continued. You could not agree on what to do. Some of you wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. Others wanted to run away. You were so busy talking that you forgot to act. Dr. Helen Carter entered the room, carrying a datapad filled with information. She was still wearing her science uniform, and her hair was messy from working in the ship's laboratory. We have been studying your technology and your tactics for 12 years, Helen said. We know more about your ships than you do. We know more about your weapons than you do. We know more about your politics than you do. She touched her datapad, and the screens showed detailed plans of alien ships. The plans were so complete that they showed every wire, every bolt, every piece of equipment. The aliens realized that the humans had been watching them so carefully that they knew the alien secrets better than the aliens did. How? Whispered Ambassador Zethkar. How did you learn so much about us? Admiral Lorison's face appeared on the screens. He was speaking from the bridge of the UE Sovereign, and behind him the aliens could see the incredible technology that powered the human flagship. We have been listening to your communications for 12 years, Morrison said. We have been watching your ships. We have been studying your battles. Every time you thought you were alone, we were there, learning. The aliens felt a chill run through their bodies. The humans had been spying on them for 12 years, and they had never known it. Every secret meeting, every private conversation, every military plan, the humans had heard it all. You must understand, Morrison continued, we did not do this to hurt you. We did this to protect ourselves. We are a young species in a dangerous galaxy. We needed to know who our friends were and who our enemies were. Captain Susan Walsh entered the meeting room, followed by several other human officers. They all looked calm and confident, like people who had just finished an easy day's work instead of the greatest space battle in galactic history. The question, now, said Claire Roberts, is what happens next. The hegemony is defeated, but there will be other threats. There will always be someone who thinks they can take what belongs to others. She walked to the center of the room and looked at each alien representative in turn. Earth is willing to help protect the galaxy. We are willing to share our technology and our knowledge. But we will do this on our terms, not yours. The aliens looked at each other nervously. They were not used to being told what the terms would be. Usually, they were the ones who made the rules. What do you want from us? asked Ambassador Zethkar. Honesty, Claire said simply. No more secrets, no more lies. No more thinking you are better than everyone else just because you are older. If we are going to work together, we need to trust each other. Commander Ben Taylor stepped forward with a data pad in his hands. We have prepared a proposal for a new galactic defense agreement, he said. Under this agreement, Earth will provide military protection for all peaceful worlds. In return, we ask for open trade, shared scientific research, and honest communication. The proposal appeared on all the screens in the room. As the aliens read it, they realized that the humans were not asking for control of the galaxy. They were asking to be partners, but equal partners. You want us to treat you as equals, said Ambassador Veltron. No, said Claire. We want you to treat everyone as equals. The strong should protect the weak, not because they have to, but because it is the right thing to do. President Kevin Hayes appeared on the screens, speaking from his office on Earth. Behind him, the aliens could see the blue sky and green trees of the human homeworld. Today marks the beginning of a new age, President Hayes said. An age where no world stands alone against aggression. An age where the strong and the weak work together for the good of all. The aliens in the meeting room began to whisper among themselves. Some were excited about the possibilities. Others were worried about giving up their old ways of doing things. But all of them understood that everything had changed. We need time to think about this, said Ambassador Zethkar. Of course, said Claire. But while you are thinking, our ships will be patrolling the galaxy. Any world that is attacked will be defended. Any aggressor will be stopped. This is not a threat. It is a promise. 6 months later, the galaxy was a very different place. Human ships could be seen in every star system, not as conquerors, but as protectors. The blue and white hulls of the Terran defense fleet had become symbols of safety and peace. The first human colony ships had launched toward distant stars, but they were not going to empty worlds. They were going to worlds where aliens had invited them to come and live as neighbors. Human cities were being built next to alien cities, and human children were learning to speak alien languages. Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the U.E. Sovereign, looking out at a sight that would have been impossible a year ago. Human and alien ships were working together to rebuild a world that the hegemony had damaged. The ships moved in perfect coordination, like a dance of peace instead of war. Admiral, said Lisa Parker, approaching with a report in her hands, we have received surrender offers from 3 more hostile groups. They heard what happened to the hegemony, and they have decided that conquering worlds is not such a good idea anymore. Morrison smiled. Send them our standard response. If they want to join the galactic community as peaceful members, they are welcome. If they want to continue being aggressive, they will meet the same fate as the hegemony. The report also contained good news from Earth. The United Nations had voted to establish the Galactic Cooperation Council, with representatives from every species that wanted to participate. The meetings would be held on a new space station, built jointly by humans and aliens, using the best technology from all species. Captain Walsh's voice came over the ship's communication system. Admiral, we are receiving a priority message from the Vorthan home world. They are asking for help with a natural disaster. Send the disaster relief ships immediately, Morrison ordered, and send a message to the Vorthans. Tell them that help is always available for those who need it. This was the new way of doing things. Instead of arguing about who should help whom, the humans simply helped. Instead of waiting for committees to make decisions, they acted. Instead of caring about politics and power, they cared about people. Dr. Helen Carter was in her laboratory, working with alien scientists on new technologies that combined who